Okay, this is the video tutorial for solving equations. And this is 1B.1. This is where you have to just solve the equation. Now, originally when we did this by hand. When it comes to the SOL, you can actually use Desmos to actually solve equations. So we're going to look at that here. Now, if you choose to do this for the retake, though, we are going to limit the score that you can get because you're not showing the full set of skills that you kind of need for later things. But we are going to give credit for students that can show that they understand how to use the Desmos calculator for this. So as an example here, it says x plus 1 equals 5. Now, clearly we know the answer is 4 for this, but look what happens once you type it actually into Desmos. You can see that it goes through the 4 on the x-axis, and that's actually what we do. If we type in the equation, as long as we can find where it crosses through on the x-axis, then we can find out where the actual solution is. Now, it is not always quite as easy as that, though. That doesn't quite work for no solutions and infinite solutions, but we'll talk about those for right now. And sometimes you need to zoom in and zoom out to see where these answers actually are as well. So solve 7x plus 8 equals 71 on line 2. Okay, let's have a try that. So literally all I'm doing is I am just copying the question, and then I'm looking for where it goes through on the x-axis, and you can see clearly here it goes through 9. If necessary, you can zoom in and say this one's not too difficult to see, and then you can kind of scroll through it, and then you can actually see 9 on the scale as well if necessary. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select 9. Just so you should have got 9. If the question uses a different variable from x, make sure you change the question to an x. That's kind of important when you're using this tool to do that. So if the question was 2a plus 1 equals 11, you would enter 2x plus 1 equals 11. And it says, let's try one of those questions here. So if I actually type it in with B, just so you can see what happens, then it actually gives me that slider option. And actually, I don't see anything on the graph here at all. So I'm going to change this. And you do have that warning symbol here as well. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to change this to an X. And then now you can see clearly where it goes on the x-axis. And to a -3. So I'm going to select -3. Now, if the x-intercept is a decimal, type it back into Desmos and then click that fraction button so you can see exactly what the answer is. Now, sometimes with long decimals, this doesn't work though, but you can always change the fractions in each multiple choice answer to decimals and then compare to see which is the correct answer. So let's have a look at a couple of examples like that. So x plus 3 equals 22. Now, I've already typed this question in here, and if you click on this, you can see that it's 2.375. Now, if we want to know what 2.375 is, we can enter it. I'd actually already went ahead and clicked the decimal fraction button. So if I click the fraction button, you can see that the answer is 19/8. So sometimes if it's a type in the answer question, that can be kind of important to know exactly what the fraction is. And for this question here, solve 7a minus 2 equals 11. If the answer choices, you can see above here. So I typed in the question, but I put x. If I look on the screen here, I can see it's 1.857. Now, if I type in 1.857, I don't actually get an answer that's listed up here. Now, the reason what this is Desmos will round the answer to 3 decimal places. So if we get something like this, we might not be able to tell necessarily what it is. And for that reason, that's kind of why it's useful to do these by hand as well. So if I subtract 2, doing the opposite, that would be to add 2, which gives me 13. And then instead of times in by 7, I would divide by 7. So I actually know that the answer is 13/7. So how do we get that from what we have? Well, I can type in each answer choice, and then I can just compare the decimals. So 1.857, 13/7, that correct answer we just looked at. You can see it's 1.857, but then it carries on for a long way. And if I try some of the other options, you can clearly see this is a totally different decimal. And you can check all of them until you find out the correct one. The reason I didn't put these first 2 answers is you can see that these are negative, and you can clearly see that this intercept is positive, with it being 1.857. Yeah, if there is no multiple choice, that's when you're going to need to fall back on those methods where you do it by hand, which is why we taught you to do the equations by hand. You also need those skills for another unit as well. So it is important that you know how to solve equations by hand too, because not every equation we can type in Desmos. So remediation, looking at some of the next ones, solve 4x plus 8 equals 5. So I'm just going to type this straight in. As it actually has an x in it, I can type in an x. It says 0.75. If I do need to find out what that is as a fraction, I can type that in, and the answer is 3/4. So there we go. I can just go ahead and select that straight away. This one has a t in it, so I'm going to change that. I am going to click the side arrow here because I want the x here. I don't want it on the bottom of the equation. If I actually put it on the bottom of the equation, you get a curved graph, which is not quite what I'm looking for here. So I'm going to put the variable there, -5 equals 19. Now, when you look at this, you don't actually see the graph at all. So sometimes I do need to zoom on questions like this, and then I can find out the answer was 16. So it just wasn't on my initial window. And go ahead and select that as well. Now, this question caused quite a bit of problems actually on the test. A lot of people have forgotten the steps for this. So if you're doing this by hand, the step is, this is a fraction here, which means divide. So you're dividing by 3. So the first step is actually to multiply by 3. Now for this one though, we're just going to go ahead and we're just going to type it straight in now. To get my fraction, I click the divide button. I click the slash button to make this a little easier. 2n plus 19. I'm going to put 2x plus 19. It was divided by 3. And the answer was equal to 5. Let me just check it's typed in exact. And I can see that it goes through -2. And now I can go back and I can select the answer of -2. Solve 3b plus 11. So we've got variables on both sides here. I'm going to change the b's into x's. Once again, I don't see where it crosses, so I'm going to zoom out until I can. Looks like it's a decimal, 10.4. And I will just change that in case it asks for the fraction. 52/5. And let's have a look, see what we've got here. There we go, 52/5. You don't need to explain your working for this one, except you type it into Desmos, I get for right now. You can do it alongside here by paper and pen method if you prefer, by bringing variables to one side and numbers to the other side. I have a feeling that that's typed in slightly wrong here. Oh, that was me that typed it in slightly wrong. Oops. It says 3x plus 11 equals 41. Okay, so let me have a check. So actually the answer is supposed to be 6. So let me click on 6. So totally accidental mistake there, but very important. You do check you type in questions carefully just to make sure that you have them exactly right. So if you type in a slightly different question, you get a different answer. So this is the question originally where we would have done distribute here, 4 times 2c, etc., etc. For this one, we are just going to go ahead and type in. We're not going to be putting c, we're going to be putting x. Don't see the answer right now, so let me zoom out. Oh, I mistyped here. So that's supposed to be a minus, not an equal sign. There we go. And click, and you can see that it's -14. And a lot of answer choices this time. Right, I'll click on -14. Same thing. This is one where we have to distribute and then collect terms together. This one definitely caused problems on the first time through. So I'm just typing this one in exactly as it looks. And -2.5. And just in case I do want it as a fraction, I can change it there. So -5/2. And I'll go ahead and select. The butterfly method, our cross multiplication question, this would have taken a long time to work this out before by hand. Now we can just go ahead and we can use that same thing. So I said b plus 3. Whoops. So I'm going to put x plus 3. On the bottom of the fraction, it said 2b plus 14. So I'm going to put in 2x plus 14 equals, and it equals 5/2. So fraction first, 5 and 2. And you can see pretty clearly this goes through -8. Sometimes it won't let you click it on. I'm not sure if it's to do with the fraction on this question, but you can kind of see that it goes through -8 for this one anyway. And whoops, where's the answer for this one? There we go, -8. Now, this is where the questions can sometimes go a little astray. So I'm going to type in the question for this one, but we're going to have a problem here. If we were to do this by hand, I would have 24x, and I would also have 24x here. So those are the special ones where we get no solution or infinite solution. And if you type that question in and zoom out, and keep zooming out, you won't find the graph at all. So when we have no solution and infinite solutions, Desmos won't actually help us for that. But there is an alternative solution. We can type in the left-hand side of the equation on one line and the right-hand side of the line on the other next line, and then we can look what happens. So here's my first line, 6 times 4x plus 3. And here's my second line. And hopefully you can see here that they're slightly different to each other. And you see, oops, if I can zoom in a little bit, you can see that there's a big gap here. they never actually cross. They're going to give me parallel lines. So the fact that they do not cross, do they cross? No, means the answer is going to be no solution. Now, if it turned out that they did cross, then the answer would be infinite solutions. And I think the easiest way to try and get that would be to, let me see if I can quickly figure this out. I think 2.25 would actually do that. There we go. Can you actually see that the lines are exactly the same here? So if you have a question where they turn out to be exactly the same, that would be how you'd offer infinite solutions. But first of all, you do type in the whole question first. So I'm going to type in that whole question just so you can see exactly what it looks like. And then I'm going to switch off this line. So as I'm looking for this, I'm zooming out, zooming out. Notice there's absolutely nothing here. You can zoom out as far as you like. I'm already into the hundreds, thousands, and millions. I don't see anything. So that was why I typed the left-hand side of the equation on one line, the right-hand side of the equation on the other side. And then I looked at the two pictures together, and you just got to zoom in as much as you need to see if it's parallel or if it's not parallel. That completes the remediation for 1B.1. If you do want to still know how to do these questions by hand, make sure you go back and watch the original test review for 1B.1, and that will show you all the methods that you need to do by hand. But for this video, that's it.